breathe in the air, the light that surrounds me. If we hold ourselves together, we'll go far. Created a space, in my head it was empty, but I know that I want to be where you are. I was denied, I had spent those years, did not recognize the person that's inside. We have a purpose, but to take that leap, you must recognize the person that's inside. Believe me, I swear, the story's not over. As I fall, I will continue to get up. I cannot stop because it is over. Live in the moment, living in a quiet, to be everywhere, to be without a care. I was denied, I had spent those years, did not recognize the person that's inside. We have a purpose, but to take that leap, you must recognize.
time frame. And then YouTube, for whatever reason, you go out live, but it doesn't publish until the next day. I don't know what that's about. It does it automatically, so we don't know. But YouTube just kind of, like, you can watch it live on YouTube when the video's over, you won't be able to see it till the next day. So I don't know.
So whatever comes up in YouTube, I get the feed. That's from a day before.
That's probably from the day before, unless it's live. If you're watching it live, then you're watching obviously live, right?
So you do one a day?
Yeah, one a day at least.
You've never done more than one at a time and then just back them up?
You can, but it doesn't, because you guys are doing this essentially full time, right? So for me, it's like, I call it out of the inbox podcasting and radio. Like, I just open up my email and just, I mean, literally, we used to do that. Now I keep these notes, and I'll explain all that in a minute. But I literally just go out of the inbox and say, all right, we got a deal that's falling apart. Let's talk about why this deal's falling apart. So, and then one of the things that Rob and I really started doing, because Tom and I didn't do it that often, I did a little bit more often than he did, but Rob and I really do it, is we talk about stuff that's not real estate related. Because it just gets so damn boring after a while. It's like, I can't talk about, let's talk about Tesla, let's talk about riding bikes or going out and partying. Like, let's talk about something different. It's like my emails do the same thing. I'm like, I literally can't do the whole, like, pitch it all the time. It's just it just doesn't work for me. So it doesn't work for Rob either. It just gets so boring. You do this enough times, it's boring, right?
I think it's better because people can relate more to you. And
Absolutely.
And I think you get people thinking like they're your best friends with them.
Right, yeah, absolutely. Well, somebody made the comment a few years ago, this is like 17, maybe 18, and this guy kind of picked a fight on Facebook. We started going back and forth, and I got a message from a personal friend of mine. He was like, man, it's kind of weird because you guys are kind of similar, and you guys would be good buds in real estate and all that stuff. And I said, well, he kind of came after me, which is fine. I don't give a shit. But then he said, one of the things he said, he's like, everybody interprets you as this like huge kind of dork in the industry that just sits there behind this dark curtain and does spreadsheets all day. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. I was like, So let's add some more, than just spreadsheets and real estate and numbers and all that stuff to the show. Like you said, so you're a little bit more than, one-dimensional character. And as you guys will start to do this, what you'll figure out is everybody has a role to play. You kind of typecast yourself, which is fine. That's actually what you want to do. Like your brand means something certain, right? So you'll figure that out as you go, kind of what you're most comfortable with talking about, that sort of thing. And then you'll see as you start doing this, you'll run into random people you've never even met before, and they feel like they know you, right? It's weird. And then when it doesn't happen at a real estate event, that's when you know it's like getting big. I run into people all the time at the airport. They give you this kind of look, and then they come over and they're like, "Oh, Jason, I watch your show," and I'm like, "Oh, great. You ever been to a real estate event?" "No, we just watched the show." And then it starts happening to other cities, and it just starts getting weird. What you realize is you can't really do anything crazy because there are people. I guarantee you, people
People watch you all the time.
all the time. I've gone out. I've been at clubs before. I've been at bars before, and people recognize me. So you might as well just act like. That's another thing too. Is I don't. That's why Rob and I don't really pull any punches either. So, Rob's first fund technically failed. Everybody got paid back and all that other stuff, but it didn't work out. And so we were real honest about that on the very first show, and we did subsequent shows on it. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to start doing this, you're going to become a public figure real quick. So that's why I don't mind talking about, like, if it ever comes up on a show, and it really hasn't come up on a show yet, and I've been asked sometimes in the comments, like, the divorce stuff, like, what's kind of going on there. So you get all these people that start asking these questions, you got to be okay with answering them. You don't have to answer, but you got to be okay with it. So your personal life does end up on the show from time to time, which is fine. I don't care. You're just randomly gonna get people that don't like you, but they watch you and they don't like you, which makes no sense at all. But your haters, I've said this a million times, your haters are gonna be some of your biggest fans. They're gonna watch all your stuff, they're gonna talk kinds of shit. It makes no sense to me why you would spend your time doing that, but they do it anyway. And then here's the other thing, this is 100% true, happens all the time. 1 month those people hate you, the next month they love you. The next month they hate you. It's like, so what I found when I started doing a lot of research is that the emotion for love and hate in the brain, when you look at MRI scans, is very close to each other. So one of the things I recognized, and I read a little bit of this from Gary Vaynerchuk, but a lot of it was from Dr. Jordan Peterson, where he basically said, look, people come for the drama and stay for the content. So when I started researching, how that whole love-hate relationship works, I was like, oh, I want love or I want hate. The one thing I don't want is indifference. A lot of people think that the opposite of love and hate is the opposite of love is hate and vice versa. That's not true. It's indifference. When you're indifferent, you can't do anything. They just have no opinion. Like, oh, there's just some dude on the radio, right? That's not what you want. You want this or this. So it's totally okay to be on the extreme. Because remember, this is entertainment at the end of the day, right? So they're getting some information, but they want to be entertained at the same time. So that's why I'll do crazy stuff like turn on Facebook Live at a bar and there's like 1,000 people there, or we've got a table and the sparklers and the girls and all that nonsense are there. Just so that it's just not so monotonous and boring, right? Plus I know there are people up at 1 o'clock in the morning just bored out of their mind anyway. That's another thing I'll tell you. It's like most people's lives of today's show, we're going to talk about faith and change and being average at best. Most people are average at best. So I'm always surprised out of all the people I meet how boring their lives really are. And when you can kind of show them some of this behind the scenes stuff and how much fun we're having and things we're doing, it's, like I said, it's entertainment. So let me go to this. So what I'm doing every day is I'm always reading a bunch of books. I realized this the other day. I don't watch much TV anymore. I probably haven't in years. I may have it on, but I'm really not watching. I'm actually reading something or I'm working on something. So this was just the last 24 hours. And right at the top, I call it emails because I also end up turning these things into emails, but they're shows too. So I'll just give you the ones from the last 24 hours. Stop chasing happiness, start chasing responsibility. And that's actually from Jordan Peterson. Atlas didn't ask for a lighter load, he asked for wider shoulders. And that's from Ryan Stone, I think. The most important step is the next step. That's David Goggins. Be changed by the journey. It's never too late to change or have a crisis of faith. And I'm going to do a whole series on that one because I really like that one. This one just says data versus drama. So a lot of people right now, and I'm getting a lot of flack for, I'm telling everybody there's no crash, like you're crazy, this doesn't make any sense. And then they start running their mouth and it's like, you don't know. Like, show me your data. I don't have any data. Okay, well, what are we talking about here? This has been one of my favorite topics and I've not written enough on it. I've written one email on it, but I want to revisit it. And that is, failure is the only drug that works. I've written on it. It's actually made it as a chapter in the book, but I want to do a couple more on that one. I can versus I will. And then this, I don't know where I got this one. A vacuum of excellence. Some of these, I'm sitting here at a bar drinking or I'm listening to something, then I put it in here and I look at it and I'm like, that one doesn't make any sense. But I must have been listening to something and I just don't remember. Anyway, so I keep I mean, you guys can see how big this is.
So those are topics you like to expand on, and then you research a little bit, or?
Yeah, I may research a little bit. I may just, given my thoughts about it. So you know that circle thing that Rob was doing this weekend?
I absolutely love.
It's fantastic. But he's like, we were chatting Sunday night, and he's like, I feel like I'm almost there on that thing. It's not quite. And I have not read the rest of the book, Winning. I'm like halfway through it. So I'm like, well, when I get through it, then I'll be able to have my thoughts on it. But he said, there's something here about that circle. And so I've got to finish the book. I probably need to do that this week. And then I'll add my thoughts to it, and then we'll add it to the curriculum for the mastermind. But yeah, there's something there. So we're always reading something and adding it. Like I said, if I hear anything interesting or if I'm somewhere, like I've got this whole, I talked a little about this, I put it at the very bottom here. I've got this whole thing on Nelson's Guide to Fishing, which was the fishing guide that we had for Northern Tier. And he just had some rules, and I just started writing them down because I'm like, these are great, these are perfect for real estate. Keep your lure in the water. You can't catch any fish if your lure's not in the water, right? And he said, fish deep, is the type of fish we were looking for, we're deep, or in the weeds, which I thought that's kind of interesting. We don't care what you like, it's what the fish likes. We don't care.
Absolutely.
I used to get, the same organization you and I were involved in, they would talk about, well, what's your why? Well, I'm doing this for vets, and I'm doing this for dogs, and everyone used to run around the room and tell each other why they're doing this. And I did a whole marketing class up there one time, and I said, you realize no one gives a shit about your why but you.
Correct, but if you don't know your why, that's the people who quit.
Well, I'm convinced you don't need to know what you don't need to know what your why is. I think it's a complete waste of time.
And I don't agree with you.
Yeah, and so, but the problem is they get their why and they're like, I got this thing.
And now what do I do?
Now I'm going to tell everybody. Well, here's the problem with your why, because most people quit anyway.
So I run a 12-month program all
Mhm.
about the dream,
Mm-hmm.
and it's built. Just tell me your why,
Yeah.
and then we're going to get your goals and your plans, because that's going to get you what you want. And
Yeah.
the goals are what you're working
We're
towards,
working
right?
towards, right?
And so I have 100 people, and 90 of them are writing to me every week how great this program is.
Yeah.
But they have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And
Well, and they've got to do all that stuff, right? But
But
here's where it gets interesting is when these guys start talking about their why, especially when it says, I see them at real estate events and they're like, here's my why, it's my family, right? And then I see them at a real estate event and I'm like, well, have you really done anything? Have you closed anything in the last year? No. And then I say, and they'll start asking me questions and I'm like, hold on, Bob. I thought your why was your family. Well, it sounds like that's not important enough for you to get, that really pisses them off. But I'm like, yeah, that's your why, but why are you not doing this, right? And that's where I'm going into this series on faith and change. So, in any case, that's how all that works. Yeah, basically, it's just a list of interesting topics.
and you do this now, and then you break it out into everything else, what you do today?
We
So
can.
close.
So what'll happen is, like the videos that we do for the super investor meeting, so I have an intro and outro video, and then I speak in between the two. Those are from radio shows. So we'll do a radio show, and then me and Rob and A-Rock go, all right, that one's good. A-Rock usually, and we'll just let him, we don't tell him like this segment, that segment, we'll just say, hey, just chop up what you think sounds good, and then 99% of the times, it's excellent. and we'll repurpose it for books and the emails and all that other stuff. Now, I won't go in, like, I've already written the email for this, but very rarely do I do a show and then transcribe it to do an email. What ends up happening is I've got this topic, and today is a good example. I've written the email already, but I haven't sent it. So I'm like, all right, but I don't feel like I've fleshed it out enough yet. So what I'll do is I'll do this radio show. It's going to give me a couple more ideas as I'm kind of talking through it on the show, and then I'll go back and change stuff in the email. So that's how I work, and that's just been doing this since 2016. I went back and looked at my old email. I mean, my writing got really good in the last couple of months. But when I go back and look at the stuff in the book, it was pretty good in the book. And then now it's getting really good. But what I realized is the way I've been doing this for the last like year and a half, 2 years, you know, you start out, like Rob said, if you guys were there when he was talking about his first Facebook Lives, and they were all terrible, right? So every time you start something new, you're just going to be terrible. And it takes a certain number of hours until you get there. And I can't remember the book that talked about the Pareto principle, the old 80-20 rule. Oh no, it's the book 10,000 Hours. Who is it that said you got to put in 10,000 hours to be a master?
Right.
Yep.
That's not the most important part of that book. The most important part of that book is you need much less time to get proficient.
Yes.
And the proficiency is 20% that gives you 80% of the results. In order for you to get that last 20%, that's where you have to put 10,000 hours in, right? So I feel like with our radio show, with my presentations, with my all that kind of stuff, where things have really, like we're now crossing over that 80% mark, if that makes sense, right? Because we're approaching the 10,000 hour thing with presentations and events and all that other stuff. But it's taken 7, 8 years to get there. But that was never core to our business anyways, right? We didn't give a shit, we're just buying property. So of course now we're getting really good at buying property. So that's kind of that. When you guys first start, it's all unnatural, it's weird, it's like talking on the radio, and but like I said, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So, and I can tell you this, like I didn't realize I liked this as much as I did. I've always been I shouldn't say I've always been, but ever since I worked for this guy, Bob, he's kind of forced you into being a good public speaker. Well now, this guy Casey, who's our business coach, which I think we have.
Casey Everhart?
Yeah, I think we have a call with him today.
I listen to him all the time.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, so I was at the single family forum last week.
Okay.
And so I forgot until the third day that I should have been taking videos and taking pictures. And so I went back, I was running around like a little bug, taking pictures of everything. Didn't get the videos. That'll be the next event,
Yeah.
which is next month. To just, and put it out there and make sure people know and talk all about them. They don't need to.
Oh,
talk
yeah,
about me.
yeah.
But, I mean, I always post things about other people and then it gets reviews. And so he says you just do it and people
Yeah.
are just gonna know you.
That's right.
And so that's my goal. This month is very small, but next month I'll be at the Captiva Loan Convention in Vegas. So,
But here's the most important thing with all this stuff. Like, this is the only thing that in fact, you could argue this is the only thing that matters in life when you really get down to it, is it's got to be consistent. Like, it's got to be consistent. So you can't have like all these posting and then all of a sudden you kind of go dark. So I'm building out my Instagram. I don't know, I have 12, 13,000 people that are following me now. And even though I'm not doing, at least my perception, because I'm so new to Instagram, I'm not doing something every day that's Instagram worthy. Oh, that's totally not true. You just gotta take a picture, right? Take a picture, a little story. So Facebook was the same way when I was doing Facebook videos and then Facebook Live and all that. Am I really doing something that's worthy of that every day? And it doesn't matter. Like you sit down and you think, oh, I gotta have a blowout, amazing show every single show. No, in fact, I'll tell you, there was one I did. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but I just felt after the show, I was like, that sucked, and I don't know why. I just didn't like it. So it was like. And I haven't had that feeling in probably like 2 years, but I was like, this sucks. But you just get through it and you go, okay, well, there's another one in the can, right? And maybe you'll figure out why you didn't like it or you did. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, so that's how I do it. I'm always, someone says something, I'm meeting with somebody, I'm watching some video, I'm listening to, and I'll tell you this, I also intentionally got out of looking at just real estate stuff years ago. So that's how I ended up in this like behavioral psychology space, like 5-6 years ago. I mean that's almost all I want. If I'm not doing real estate specific stuff, that's basically what I'm researching these days is behavioral psychology, which I think is going to lead us more into this mindset stuff. But anyway, so that's how I do the show. I'm always, like I said, always listening and watching, doing something outside of real estate, and then trying to bring that in here and relate it to real estate. You guys can do your shows however you like, but that's what's been easiest for me. Rob's a little more off the cuff when it comes to some of this stuff. But a lot of times he's in there, I'll hear him in his office. I mean, he's got some YouTube video going of something, and he just comes down here and, all right, we're gonna talk about this. So that's how we do it.
So you think even if we don't have any experience whatsoever, with long enough practice, that eventually will be better?
I mean, yeah, it's not, you know what? Here, it's like anything. Here's how you get better. You look at, Tom used to say something I always thought was really novel, and that was, somebody comes in and says, well, I got 20 years experience. I'm like, okay. So is that 20 progressive years, or is that 1 year repeated 19 more times?
Yeah.
Like, I run into guys in and this is the best way to relate it, because I can see it in real estate. You know, our net worth is public. When you really get down to it, you do a Google search, you can find our LLCs, you can figure out how much what our net worth is, right? Or at least how much we have in assets. So I always find it fascinating when I run into somebody that's like, well, I got 25 years experience in real estate. And I'm like, man, I've got 8. I can't imagine 25. Like, what is that gonna look incredible, right? So I was asking, like, well, what do you have? Like, how big's your portfolio? And they may have a decent sized house and a little portfolio, and I'm like, that's it over 25 years? 25 years, that's it? I mean, you bought 10 houses a year, you had 250, right? And most of them would be almost paid off. So it over time, especially in real estate, I mean, it gives you a lot of options. But here's what ends up happening. They start year one, they maybe did some flips, they bought some rentals, they sold the rentals 3 years later, they're doing owner finance, they're doing, you know, mobile home park, and you're like looking at their portfolio and it's this patchwork of garbage, right? So the problem is they never get good at anything because they never stick with it. And those are also the same people where you can look at their personal and professional relationships and they're all a mess too, right? Because they never really kind of stick with it to kind of get through the hard times, right? I was listening to, I went on a little walk last night. I was listening to, what's the guy's name? Jocko Willink. And so Jocko gets in email from people and they're asking him questions. Hey, Jocko, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And this email was awful. I mean, this guy was going through all the trials and tribulations. Family's falling apart, work's falling apart, creditors are called, like all that stuff, right? I mean, the real bad stuff. And he's like, well, what do I do? And Jocko basically says, you're in the fight now. You got to triple down. You don't let up. You go all in. And he gave him a quick little plan on how to do that. But most people just wilt when the fire gets close. And it's like, you can't do that. You've got to double down and get good at it. So how do you get good at this stuff is people come by my office even now and they're like, are you actually listening to the show you did earlier? I'm like, yeah. I want to make sure I don't sound like a moron. So you're going to listen to yourself. That's a little weird. Yeah. It takes a little while, but then you'll listen. You'll notice, even on stage or here, I don't have any none of that stuff. Anytime there's dead air, it's on purpose. But you don't get to do that until you listen to your own shows, that sort of thing. And that's how you get better. You do the show, you put it up, you listen to it later.
So I have a question. One of my concerns, because they're really hot for me to start a podcast, and I have no problem doing it, I just have a problem with time. I travel a lot, and so I talked to a company. I'm going to be on a podcast next Friday to just get a feel for how it works at all. But what I talked about was doing more than one in a day. And I don't know how that'll work, but I know that's the only way I can do it. I can't be in New Jersey at a podcast.
I understand that. Here's part. So there's 2 problems with that. Well, let me put it this way. We have actually done that for some shows. We would shoot 4 or 5 at a time. But here's the problem with that. One is, let me back up a second. This will be either the most important thing you do or it won't be. This is the most important thing that we do when you really get down to it. Now, we don't take it as seriously as everyone thinks we do, but this is the most important thing that we do.
I understand.
Yeah, second to buying real estate. And here's the other thing. I also wouldn't bother going on anybody else's podcasts. And here's why. Until you have a marketing system in place for when you go on those other podcasts, it's a complete waste of time.
This is not a podcast.
Oh, okay.
It's a chamber they want me to talk about my business. Nobody's gonna care about it. I don't care. It's just.
Well, you're spending the time though. That's
I am spending the time because I wanna try it before I do it.
Okay.
It'll just make me feel better that I've done it.
Okay, but this is still this is a good learning. So when people ask me, hey Jason, I want you to be on my podcast. Great. So you need to show me your marketing material so I know it's being distributed to your group. And then I need some marketing material so I can send it out to all my people, right? Like there's this whole thing that goes on here. In fact, I'm going back and forth with Quest right now. We're gonna do something together here in August, and we're all gonna co-market and co-brand it. You can do the sit down and bang out 4 or 5 episodes in a day. I don't think it's as good. I really don't think it's as good. The other problem is that you don't get to interact with the audience. So, A-Rock, are there any questions or comments coming up?
Nope.
No, I wouldn't think so on a segment like this. So that's kind of I mean, if you're gonna do it, but I don't find it as good. The best shows are the ones that are live. They're just bar none of the best ones, and then you can read the comments and you'll get emails and all that other stuff. I mean, they're just.
So have you ever tried doing it from another location when you're traveling?
Oh yeah, you can do it from. I mean, you just turn the thing on and go.
So
We do it at bars around town all the time.
So what do you bring with you to do, when you say you do it, do you have just your computer, your phone, what do you do?
Yeah, you just bring. We got something called a snowball. It's just a microphone. You bring your computer and set that. That's just a webcam. This thing, there's nothing sexy about our setup in here. Like all the really expensive stuff is over there where A-Rock is. But there is nothing expensive. It's $1,000 laptop, $150 Logitech camera. What's a snowball? $80, $100? Set it right.
You get a Zoom and just record it.
Yeah, just record it right there.
Maybe $150.
All right, well,
Yeah.
that may be the alternative, which won't be a bad alternative, because one of the things I always talk about on Facebook and my group is the travel and who I'm meeting and why I'm going and networking and so.
And if you're traveling and you're at some kind of networking event, something like that, find that quiet corner. So the only thing you can screw up on these is the audio. Video really doesn't matter. I mean, these mics are, how much were these mics? $500 each? These are the same ones Joe Rogan uses. So, and you'll notice crappy webcam. At some point, we're going to upgrade the rest of the studio. I don't know when. But the audio is the only thing that matters. Like, it is literally the only thing that matters. That's why when I go to events, I have gotten to the point now where I don't go to an event if I know their audio sucks. Because the people are not there to see me wearing a suit with my logo on the inside of it, right? They're there to hear the content. So if they can't see the PowerPoint and they can't hear us or the audio is coming in and out, I'm like, look, until you guys get that fixed, we're not doing it. When I was with Right Path, we used to bring our own audio, and the stuff we had there for our seminars was ridiculously expensive. Andy would come in, there's a special machine, it's a kind of a box that's got this kind of radar thing on it, but it measures all of the frequencies that are running through a room. So when you put up your wireless headset, you adjust it to a frequency that's not even close to any of the others, so you don't get any feedback, nothing. I mean, it's amazing. So that's the only thing that matters. I would go to these events that you're going to. If you've got somebody that's interesting, put them on. And by interesting, I mean they might have a following on Instagram or Facebook, or they already have a podcast. Like, find the influencers and bring them on. That is the most valuable thing, right? And I
was wishing I had done that because I was talking to the guy who owns Redlock. It's the wrong name. Something that we're looking at, a package to buy, and he owns it. Then I met the owner of REI Inc. Magazine, and so I'm like, I should have taken that video.
yeah.
But that's, yeah.
So that's all it is. It's just that, and you just throw it all in a bag, and you're off to the races. It's not real, not real. And you don't have to do it on, like A-Rock said, you don't have to do it on Facebook Live. You can do it on Zoom and just record it and upload it later. But yeah, Yeah, I really, if you can be consistent, doing a show every day, I think is key. Now, we don't do shows on Fridays for a handful of reasons. A lot of times we're not here, there's some stuff going on.
So you do shoes 4 days a week.
Well, what they do is they do a best of, and then that best of show ends up on, as like a Friday show.
We don't have best stuff yet, so.
No, you don't have them yet. And then we play on different markets, so those are all like best of shows that play on Saturdays. So we're not doing a Saturday show. So our show is actually on 6 days a week, which is fine because I know not everybody's listening in those markets. They're not listening to every single show, so that's fine. And then I think you got to back into what the real important piece here is. Why are you doing all this stuff? And we get on. In fact, we do the radio. I'll do the radio intro and talk about it. I'm like, I'm not doing this to give back. I think it's a bullshit answer. It's total bullshit. So we call it out. We're like, we're not here to give back. We're just not. We're here for deals and money. Period. I'm not here for anything else. So I'm here for you to join our mastermind or put money in my fund or bring me deals. That's the only reason I'm doing this show. So I'm a heartless capitalist bastard. And as Rob likes to say, we give back in other ways, so we don't have to pretend like this is a give back thing, right?
No, I love when you say that, because that is like,
Any,
so key. I
No,
like
it
helping
gives you
people, but I'm not
Yeah.
here to help you.
Yeah.
I'm here to make money for me.
Yeah. I'll help you out.
Yeah, but it's.
But there's going to be a check that comes this way at some point, right? So, all right, how long have we been on, A-Rock? Probably like 30 minutes, 40 minutes. How about this? You want to close this one, call it part 2?